Start. I got to tell you a story, okay? And I spoke at an AA meeting yesterday up in Mount Holly, and it was really interesting because this lady came up to me after the meeting, gave me a hug, and she said, "I know you don't remember me, but in 1985, I was in your women's group." I said, "Okay," and she said, "And you came in one day and said, I'm going to be away on vacation for 2 weeks. And when I come back, I have to tell you a story." And I said, "What?" "Well, everybody knew me then as Father Vince because I was still a priest. They said, when I come back in 2 weeks, I won't be Father Vince anymore. I'll just be Vince, so with my transition time." So it was really interesting going back. I met a lot of people at the meeting yesterday that kind of took me back in time, which was pretty neat when you get to see people you haven't seen in a long time. So I got a kick out of that story. So it brought me back to my own personal transition. Okay, we're going to continue the series on codependency today. And I want to talk about actually what we've been doing is the first 5 sessions are an explanation of codependent behaviors. And then starting next week, I'll be starting the recovery process from codependency. But today I'm going to kind of bring everything to a conclusion with a talk I love giving called The Roles of Codependency. And I share this because so many of us get programmed into these roles don't even know we're in them. So I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. I want to start by doing a reading I did this morning. And it's from the Woman's Meditation book, Each Day in the Beginning. And it's the reading for today. The balance of events in our lives is much like the balance of nature. The pendulum swings, every extreme condition is offset by its opposite. We learn to appreciate the gifts of the bad times as well as periods of rest. On occasion, we'll discover that our course in life has changed direction. We need not be alarmed. Step 3 has promised us that we are in caring hands. On every occasion, every detail of our lives will be taken care of in the right way at the right time. We can develop an attitude of gratitude for all conditions, good or bad. Each has a necessary place in our development as healthy, happy people. Leave the sorrows along with the joys if we are to gain new insights. Our failures keep us humble, remind us of our need for the care and guidance of others. And for every hope dashed, we can remember one will be found. Life is a process. I will accept the variations with gratitude. Each in his own way is a blessing. I wanted to share that because I want to talk a lot today about roles. And one of the things I realize is that as codependents, we actually migrate into what I call 6 different roles. And those roles we migrate into because they almost become our identity. It's almost like we don't realize it. But in growing up as children, especially in those first 10 years of our life, we don't really have a real good concept of who we are because literally many of us were programmed into certain roles and messages were given to us that then became our normal. An example, when I was in grammar school, I had the nuns. It was the Italian nuns back in the 40s. And if I did something bad, they would have me write on the blackboard 100 times, "I am a bad boy." If you write for 100 times on a blackboard, you're a bad boy, then you've convinced yourself you're a bad boy. So you pick up a trait and a characteristic that becomes your normal. And normals basically will fall into them, not even realizing we do them, and it's hard to break them. I'll share another story with you. I studied speech and drama at Catholic University for 2 years. And during our speech and drama program, we actually had to take part in stage plays. One of the plays I participated in was called Stalag 17, the story of a prisoner camp. And the role they gave me was the role of animal, because I was a little larger then. And I had to actually, how our program worked. For 2 weeks prior to the play, I had to live the role of animal to get my grade, which meant I had to dress like him, act like him, and function like him. He was a guy that kind of wore long johns a lot. He had a grufty beard. He had this crazy hat on all the time. and he was kind of very much a slob, you want to use the term. You know, today we probably would have classified him as somebody off the street. I had to kind of dress that way and act that way for 2 weeks. Then we put the play on for 2 weeks and we traveled. And then at the end of 4.5 weeks of playing animal and turning into my life, at the end of the play, then basically we were finished to get our grade. But the problem was, just in 4.5 weeks, I got used to the sloppiness of being animal. It almost became like a normal to me. We actually had a psychologist to help us deprogram ourselves out of the role. That's in 4.5 weeks. But if you realize, so many of us in growing up were drilled into roles, and those roles became a normal to us. And they were a way in which we learned how to survive life instead of living life. So the 6 roles I want to share with you today of codependency, basically the first one is the chemically dependent person or the addictive personality. The second one is the chief enabler, the fixer, the rescuer. The other role, the third role, is the family hero. The fourth role is the family scapegoat. The fifth role is the mascot. The fifth role is the lost child. And the sixth role is the mascot. Now, I share these 6 roles because these are roles many of us have played to be able to become survivors. They became kind of a way of life for us to get through different things in the course of our life. Because very many times we literally had to fall into these roles for survival purposes. But also, here's the scary thing. They became identity roles. And so you got your affirmation, everything came from your identity. The other part of it was these roles are centralized around the 2 big codependency concepts of control and fear. And whenever you have to live your life trying to control a situation, then basically you get into this. The first 2 roles, a chemically dependent type individual or the addictive personality and the chief enabler, are fundamentally connected together because the 2 of them are basically almost the same role. The role of the chemically dependent person or the addictive personality is someone who migrates towards kind of an addiction to avoid having to look at themselves and literally becoming very dependent, and at the same time also operating on that philosophy of I want what I want when I want it, and I want it now. And I basically then become someone who uses people, takes advantage of people, and literally uses either an embalming fluid or an addiction to become my normal, to avoid my feelings, to avoid dealing with life. And as a result, then I get caught up in my identity of being there. On the other hand, you have the chief enabler. And the enabler is the individual who's always trying to fix the chemically dependent person. So I'm always trying to straighten somebody's life out. And sometimes they don't want their life straightened out, but I'm going to straighten it out anyway. Now, I'll give a couple examples of this to bring it out to you. When I was in the priesthood, and especially when I was stationed in the Atlantic City area, I was functioning in both of these roles. Fundamentally, my addictive personality, I functioned in the beginning, the early years, I functioned by using alcohol as a drug, put myself to sleep at night because I was too busy saving people. When I got involved in AA, I would jump to the other role, which was the chief enabler role. And I decided, I mentioned this too in my story, I talk about it all the time. When I first got into AA, I never did my step work. I was a 2-stepper. I stepped with the alcohol down, then I began to fix everybody, save everybody. I'm right to the 12th step. I didn't need the 10 in between. And so I was going to fix everybody, save everybody, and I became a crusader. I was going to fix you whether you want to be fixed or not. In fact, I remember back then we used to do crazy things of bringing people to treatment. They didn't want to go to treatment. We brought them anyway. And then we leave them there. They couldn't get home. They were too far away. Usually drive them someplace way out in outer Mongolia, drop them off, then leave. So the only way you can get home is to walk home, which was about 15 to 20 miles. And have to walk home. Addicts can do that though. But the bottom line was what happens a lot of times is we get caught up in enabling. This comes into a lot of areas. Parents get into this with children a lot of times. The situation where you're always enabling and fixing. And also, I realized in my childhood, my mother was the one who always rescued me, saved me, took care of me, and made sure that I always was okay. And we can fall into this role so easily, not just in drugs or alcohol, but in other areas. I'll give you an example. An individual who went through a couple of divorces and whose life basically was kind of lonely. And she basically had her son living with her. And her son, basically, she did everything for him, paid his bills, did everything, gave him all the best stuff, everything else. It's almost like she made him into her spouse in many ways, indirectly. And as a result, then he never had to have any responsibility. So basically, he's got a good thing going. And as a result, later on, when it came time for him to leave, he never left. Why would he leave? He's in a good welfare system. And as a result, then, I get phone calls all the time from mothers who say to me, my son's been living with me for the past 45 years. He doesn't do anything, doesn't pay any bills. And basically, he needs some help. And I keep telling her that she needs some help. But she keeps telling me he needs some help. I did the exact same thing when I went to my first Al-Anon meeting. My pastor was an alcoholic. I went there so they could tell me how to fix him. And those strange people at Al-Anon kept telling me to work on me. I didn't need any help. I was a priest. I was okay. I wanted to fix him and save him and rescue him. And I tried everything possible to do that, to the point where I just about wrecked myself and wrecked my own life. And it's sad, but it's true. Because literally we have to teach the gift of responsibility. You have to break the patterns. We do this a lot of times in life because I see people do it in relationships. I'm going to fix him. I'm going to make him get better. And as a result, we can get caught up in that enabling because it's a control issue. And then there's also the fear that goes along with it, because when it doesn't work, then I get myself in trouble. Let me give a good example of this. It's a true story. The gentleman I had the honor and privilege of working with later on in his life, who lived in a place in Philadelphia called North Philly. He was into alcohol, into drugs. His life was totally insane, totally unmanageable. His mother lived in South Philadelphia, and his mother basically would rent his apartment for him, pay his bills for him, constantly bring food over there for him. She always wanted him to be okay, to be okay. He would yell at her, scream at her, call her all kinds of names. This interaction went on. He ended up, how he got in, I have no idea, but he was able to hide his addiction. He ended up getting into the military and ended up in Vietnam. While he was in Vietnam, he got a message. He went back into drugs in Vietnam. He got a message that his mother had died. His response was, good riddance to the old bitch. He was basically in that angry stage, that stuck stage. His addiction had taken over his life. His mother, on the other hand, literally drove herself into the grave, trying to rescue him and save him. Thank God he did get into recovery, and later on in life, I was able to help him work out an amends with his mom even after she died. Be able to work it out in a very powerful way. But I've learned over and over again, these are things that happen. Because literally we get caught up in these roles of wanting to fix people and save people, but we avoid looking at ourselves. And that took me down the road of addiction, took me down the road of my eating disorder, to a point where I had a nervous breakdown and ended up in a hospital. I went through all kinds of craziness in my life, but I had this drive inside of me to always, always, always be taking care of somebody else, even when they don't want to be taken care of. And I had to be careful with that when I got married because I wanted to do it to my kids. I thank God for my wife who put a break on that one for me. The bottom line is I fall in the same category again. Then again, it's good to be nice and to be a nice person. So be careful about enabling. You know, when I was in Atlantic City as a priest, I went $60,000 in debt from giving money away to addicts. Now, if you happen to be a recovering addict in this room, you would have loved me back then. Because if you got in trouble, I bail you out. I pay your bills for her. To the point where I put myself almost, you know, in all kinds of deep debt that took me years to get out of. And I really thought I was helping people. But I got to tell you my famous story about enabling. There's a gentleman I met in Atlantic City, a very beautiful gentleman, who was a street wino. And he had this habit very many times of aggravating us. I was in an all African American parish. I was running a basketball program on an outside court, cement court. He would come to the rectory, aggravate me. He was drunk. He would come to the court and throw his empty wine bottles on the court. And so literally he was all messed up. I kept trying to fix him and save him. Then one day he came to the back door of the rectory and he said to me, "Get in the car, priest, and take me to Carrier Clinic. I'm going to sign myself in for help." Well, I took him to Carrier Clinic because I figured I'd get rid of him. Be there for 6 months. And 6 months later, he came back, rang the doorbell at the rectory. I answered it and he said, "Hey, priest, you're an idiot." "What do you mean I'm an idiot?" He said, "You're an idiot." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" "See all those drunks, those alcoholics that come to the back door of the rectory? You give them money, you give them food, you give them this. Stop it. They come to the back door, you offer them treatment. Bet you won't get too many visitors anymore." He was right. And I had to learn lessons the hard way because it almost became an identity to me. Everybody depended on me for everything. And that also gives you kind of a high end feeling. The next two roles are the family hero and the scapegoat. You notice they're opposites, but these are all about control. They're all about fear. They're all about the concept of a fear of change. The family hero is the one person in the family everybody can depend on. The one person always comes through. The one person that's always on. The one person always available. To be a family hero, just to be a hero, means you got to be on duty 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. You have to live by a phone booth so you can change clothes. You're playing the role of Superman or Superwoman. And as a result, then everybody then depends on you. And as a result, you have to always come through. The bottom line with many of these roles, the family hero is also a very lonely and a very angry person because they always have to be there. They have to be on. They got to be ready. They can never have an off day because people depend on them. I know in my family, I was a family hero for years. The amazing part about it is I was the priest on the pedestal. And as a result, then everybody depended on me for everything. And as a result, then it's almost like you're not allowed to make changes. You're not allowed to get out of that role. But it's hard living that role because it's lonely. Because basically, you got to always be up here and everybody else is kind of down here. So it's kind of a crazy role to be in. The scary part about it is if you don't want to be in it anymore, it's hard to leave. That's why I have such a hard time leaving the priesthood, because I literally have become the hero of everybody and everything. To make changes in life, to move in new directions. Change is scary, and yet it's necessary. It's the same thing with the family scapegoat. These are the individuals that get in trouble all the time. They're always causing problems. They're always in trouble with prison, jails, drugs, alcohol, no matter what it is. Remember, both things are about attention. The family hero gets attention. Everybody praises the family hero because you get things done for them. The family scapegoat gets yelled at, screamed at, but still gets attention. Remember, a gentleman said to me, the only time my parents ever paid attention to me is when I got in trouble. And all of a sudden, everybody cared about me all of a sudden. It's amazing when you come right down to it. It's almost like you live in these two spectrums. You'll notice if you look at the news, the newspaper, or anything else, who makes the paper? Heroes or goats? Top or bottom? People that live normal, everyday lives, do their work every day and just get through the day, don't make the newspaper. But it's the extremes that make the paper. And that's the crazy part about it. In codependency, a lot of times, these become roles that we play. It's almost like I like being in that role, in the comic strip Pigpen with all everything on top of his head. Everything's always there. I can't get rid of it. Because people expect that of me. I expect you always get in trouble. Therefore, I won't trust you for anything. And as a result, then it becomes a normal. The other side of it is the family hero. But thing about these two roles, you can go from hero to goat overnight. If a hero makes a mistake or screws up, he's then delegated right down to the bottom. And I'll share this with you. When I was in the priesthood with my family, my wonderful Italian family, I did all the weddings, all the funerals, I did all the baptisms, I did everything. I was the one everybody came to. When I left the priesthood, I went to the bottom of the spectrum, and if I was getting married, I had to find out by checking the newspaper. It's almost like you went from the top right down to the bottom because you made a major change in your life. People go through this with divorces, with separations, and stuff to this effect. People that I hung around with don't want to hang around with me anymore because I'm not a couple anymore. All these things happen to individuals and people. Change of lifestyle, moving in new directions, letting go of a business. One of the hardest things I ever had to do, and I'm so happy I did it, was to let go of being the director of Starting Point. Then I dumped everything on Loretta. She can take care of it from now on. The bottom line is, I was in that role for so long, the survivor role. In the beginning, it was very hard to make that change, to make decisions in your life to make changes. I still hear this all the time. For years, I ran groups, codependency groups. And for years, I had hundreds of people took part in them. People say, why don't you continue doing them now? And I said, because first of all, I'm older now, and it takes a lot of energy to do those groups. I don't have that kind of energy anymore. You know how hard it was to be able to say that? How hard it was to do this? And I talked to a gentleman yesterday who played basketball most of his life. He was 6'7", and I had to talk to him this way by looking up. But the bottom line was, he said to me, he said, Vince, I'm in my 70s now. There's a part of me that still wants to go out there and play, but I can't do it anymore. I got these ailments, I got this thing, I got that. Even that doesn't want to stop me. I got so used to being on that court. I got so used to the accolades I got from it that when I finally fell off that pedestal and couldn't do it anymore is when I started to drink. Because literally I couldn't transition. And now I'm in recovery 5 years. He said, I'm making the transition, but it's hard. It's hard to make the transition because you're in this position all the time. So change is a big part of this process we're talking about. And we'll talk more about it in the recovery process, but change is the key to everything. And the hardest thing is to let go of these roles. And if you're a real good codependent, then you jump from one role to another role. See, I learned what it was to be the hero, and I learned to be the scapegoat, and I learned to be both sides of it. And I still experience that today because I still have people who contact me. I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I was in Atlantic City, I was involved, in all kinds of pickets and movements and stuff to this effect, and literally, and I was always fighting City Hall. Well, this one gentleman from Atlantic City keeps calling me up and he wants me to go back and he wants me to be a fighter like I was in the past. I can't go back and do that stuff anymore. I don't have that kind of energy anymore. So my life has changed. I can write letters now. I can do things in different directions, but I can't physically go into that anymore. See, things change in your life. At the same time, when you get into a relationship, you get into a family, things change again. Change is a beautiful thing, but it's a hard thing also. The last two roles we look at are the lost child and the mascot. Lost children are individuals who kind of drift and float through life. They don't really have a good direction of where they're going. And so literally, they want everybody else to make decisions for them. And so the lost child is the passive type individual who's always walking around everybody else. And the bottom line is, I don't want any responsibility. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Whatever you want me to be, I'll be. Some of the older, closer to my generation, remember a movie called Marty? And Marty used to walk around and they used to say to Marty, what do you want to do, Marty? Whatever you want to do. Where do you want to go? Wherever you want to go. What do you want to eat? Whatever you want to eat. In short, I don't want to make any decisions. You make them for me. Because if they don't work, I can blame you and get angry at you. But I can play that lost child role. I have no idea where I'm going. Tell me who I am. Tell me where I'm going. Tell me what I'm supposed to be. Tell me how to live. Tell me how to do this. It's like, poor me, poor me. I have no direction in life. I want you to give me direction. But the bottom line is, I have to be able to get to a point where I want to be able to, I use the term grow up, put my big girl pants on, begin to make decisions, to make changes. But it's so much easier to let somebody else make them for you. Because then you just have to do whatever they tell you to do. You have to think or make a decision. And so passive type individuals, the lost children, have a tendency to do that. These are individuals a lot of times who never got any direction at home, were very dependent on their family. They couldn't even function. I'm thinking now of an individual who lived this whole 34 years of his life. I think it's 34, maybe it's 35 by now, of his life, basically having his mother make all those decisions for him. And now all of a sudden, he's trying to get his own place, but he wants his mom to pick it out for him. He doesn't know what he's going to do because he was so dependent for so long. It's almost like the lost child remains a child. And we see this a lot of times in individuals who are scared to grow up, scared to move on, scared to make commitments, scared to move in new directions. The other side of it is the mascot. The mascots are the aggressive lost children. These are the individuals that will drive you crazy because they're going to bug you. They're going to be around you. They're going to drive you crazy. They're going to ask you about 48 times a day. Do you still love me? Do you love me? You sure you love me? You still love me? You positive? Sure, you sure, you sure, you sure, you sure? At meetings, I love them because they're the ones that will set the chairs up, make the coffee. They'll do anything. If you ask for a volunteer, the hand goes right up. I'll do everything. In their addiction, they're the ones who dance on top of the tables. They always had attention, 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 attention. A lot of times, even at meetings, sometimes you'll meet some of them. The hands will go up and they'll share. And that's the end of the meeting. They're going to share for 45 minutes. They're going to go on and on and on. They want attention. They want attention. Give me attention. And if you don't, I'm constantly. And the crazy part about it is they can make you crazy. They're like little kids who constantly are throwing a tantrum to get what they want. And even in recovery, a lot of times they have a tendency, I'm like a lost child. I just pay attention to me, please. Let me do things for you. Let me be available all the time. Let me do this. You know, the poor me thing. And many times they'll do it indirectly too. They'll do it, you know, through the world of fantasy or make believe, whatever they do. It's like I keep searching and searching. The bottom line I'm talking about today, though, is these are individuals, these roles, that we have no idea who we are. And so we get our affirmation, we get our love from being around other people. A lady said to me one time, I like being around you. I said, okay, because you have good energy. But next thing I know, she's around me a lot. Next thing I know, I turn around, she's there. And I said, we have to set some boundaries here. Let's back off. Yeah, but you know so much. You can help me in so many ways. You can do this, you can do that. I also experience it a lot of times when somebody will, come, we just want to talk. I just want to talk. They don't really want to talk. They just want to be with somebody. Loneliness can create a lot of problems in a lot of people. And that's where a lot of times the lost child and the mascot get caught up in. And the sad part about it is they're good people. But because of loneliness, a lot of times they keep looking for their affirmation. They're looking for who they are, their identity. They want other people to tell them that all the time. These roles can interact with each other across the line. And I've learned over the years that as codependents, we have a tendency to migrate towards these roles because these roles give us an identity. And I know in my own journey, in my own life, even in the priesthood, being a priest was a role. For me, it was. There are a lot of great guys out there where it's not a role. It's a good way of life for them, but it was a role for me. And therefore, I felt like I had to be on duty all the time. I felt like I had to be available. I had to be there for everybody, take care of everybody, do all kinds of things. And got myself into a lot of hassles, a lot of trouble over it. Because I realized today, I can't fix another human being, no matter what I do. I can't save anybody. I've learned over the years, I can carry a message, but I can't carry a person. It's that old story. You can teach a person how to build, how to develop something, responsibility, but you can do it for them. You do it for them, it doesn't work. That's one of the reasons why, I'll be honest with you, I really can't be a long-term therapist. I'm too impatient. Because what I want to do is tell you exactly what to do, how to do it, and get out of here. But see, a real person in real therapy has to find these things for themselves and make these decisions for themselves and begin to move forward, not have somebody do it for you. That's why I'll probably be a good crisis counselor, but not a long-term therapist. Because I can deal with a situation, try to get it settled, and then move on. That's why I give a lot of credit to people. I can work with people 2 or 3 years to help them get over humps, get over places, do things in life. It's a whole different ballgame. I share these roles because I really believe so many of us fall into them, that we're guided by them. And the bottom line is, every one of us is a very basic, beautiful human being. Every one of us has a story. Every one of us is unique. We have to learn to accept our individuality. We don't need to be the savior of the world. Believe me, I tried that. It doesn't work. We don't need to be constantly giving everybody everything. And I know this came from my dad. My dad was Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Fantastic. Did everything for everybody in our family. He was the glue that held our family together. He was always, always doing everything, whatever he needed. My aunt got married, she needed silverware, he gave her our silverware. We didn't have any now, but now we're using plastic silverware. He gives everything away. And I did the exact same thing, to a point of being in debt, to a point of not having anything for myself. I never thought I deserved anything. I thought my job was to always be the hero to everybody else. And I'm learning now, I don't want to be that anymore. But the patterns fall back. The other day, I made some major decisions in my life of change. The other day, I was at the 400 Club in Clementon, and one of the ladies in the club came up to me and she said, Vince, oh, good to see you. Give me a big hug. And she said, I work at a rehab. You worked there before the virus. And we really miss you. Oh God, you did so much good there. This. When are you going to come back? I said, I'm not. She said, what do you mean you're not? I said, because now I do things differently. I don't mind giving a talk in a rehab if you want to need to give the talk on Zoom. I don't mind giving a talk to do the family education program, but I'll do it on Zoom. I can still interact with people and connect with people. But see, I don't have the energy anymore to be driving, 15, 20 miles to different rehabs and places to this effect. Nor do I have the energy to be able to drive at night anymore. As you get older, it's like those lines change. Your concept of vision changes. So I'm learning, life changes. So it's part of it. You got to make the decisions accordingly. And so it's the same thing with a lot of things we do in life. Change is part of the journey. It's a big part of the journey. But we have to be able to realize the fact, the first thing is to identify our roles, then to accept them, and then to be able to face them and develop them in a positive way. That's why I did the reading that I did today. Because even though we look at these roles negatively, realize the fact they're part of who we are. We have to learn how to adjust them in a positive way. There's always a positive from a negative, no matter what happens. And the reading also told us life is like this. You're going to have good days and bad days, times when things work, times when things don't work. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. But also realize the fact you can't save the world. I want to share one more story with you. You heard me say it so many times. Way back when I was 20 years old, I really was 20 at one time. I really was. When I was 20 years old, I knew everything. It's amazing, isn't it? When I was 30, I discovered the questions. When I was 40, I found out there weren't any answers. When I was 50, I didn't care. I turned 60, oh, well, I'm starting to have some fun now. I turned 70, let it all hang out. Now I turned 80, hey, just enjoy the damn day. Have fun with it. Do the best you can do, and then go to sleep. That's how it works, And I look around the room, I see people here that are connected to that. That's all. Do the best you can do. You get something done. I don't care if you get that much done. My sponsor, Richard, said that to me so many times. He said, if you make that much progress today, that's enough. Because I used to say to him, about if I do that much, he said, no, that much. That's it. A little bit at a time. And my father used to say it, bien, bien. A little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit makes a lot. So just take your time, go slow, enjoy, celebrate special moments in life. That's what life really is all about. So my prayer today is that all of us will be able to acknowledge these roles, embrace them, but learn and grow from them, and not be afraid to make decisions and make changes in our life. Because each one of us is special, unique, and wonderful. There's a beautiful side to every negative side too. Isn't it fun that we have that yin and the yang, negative and positive? Wow. It's called balance. Gabish, balance. That's what it's really all about. So let us pray. God, we come before you today in prayer. Thank you for allowing us to be just a wonderful human being. Teach us to realize that through life, we're going to experience different things. You send messengers, teachers into our life every day. Teach us not to put them on pedestals, just to enjoy them and be part of them. And know that on our journey, we are messengers. On our journey, we carry a message. We carry that message through your spirit to who you are. And just accept your purpose in life. Help us, God, to accept our purpose. Wherever we are on our journey today is where we're supposed to be. The secret is to adjust it, learn from it. So we come before you today for strength, that your spirit may come upon us and help us as we make changes and growth in the course of our journey. We pray and we ask this in your blessing. We ask it in your name. Amen. Now we're going to ask if you don't mind unmuting, and we're going to make an attempt